Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Places We'll Go show. Another fabulous, stellar guest this morning. I'm really excited to be able to welcome Patricia Corsi. Welcome, Patricia.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Fabulous to have you on the show. Now, this is a special day, frankly. So Patricia is Chief Marketing, Digital and Information Officer at Bayer, but also was very recently nominated as Global Marketer, the World Marketer of the Year candidate for the WFA. So Patricia is a big hitter in her industry. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the background, because Patricia's traveled the world with her job, so not everyone will necessarily be familiar. So just to context, Bayer is a global company in the healthcare and agriculture space, tackling some of today's biggest challenges like global population growth, aging society, sustainable use of resources. But back in the day, Patricia started at Janssen, a pharmaceutical company, moved to Kraft, another classic marketing schooling company, and that was in Brazil. Moved to Unilever for a decade in Europe and Latin America. She's been CMO of Heineken before joining Bayer in 2022, so relatively recently. Also got some interesting non-exec roles, including with Tate & Lyle. And I love Patricia. I mean, she's going to bring so much energy today, but some of the interesting things that I picked up in doing a little bit of research. Patricia says she likes to work towards making herself uncomfortable at least once a week. And if you look at her LinkedIn, there's this lovely line at the top which says, "Stay close to people who feel like sunshine." So I think we're going to get a fantastic perspective, not least because Patricia has continued to upskill herself. She did a course at Singularity University in the USA, which covered robotics, AR and VR, so very much at the forefront. Also, I think a very entrepreneurial streak that came through your father and grandfather. And as I said, you are your WFA Global Marketer of the Year nominee, which is an awesome achievement by any standards. Today, what are we getting into? We know Patricia is very focused on championing creativity, particularly in the healthcare industry, but also in marketing, normalizing some taboo conversations. I know diversity is going to be a theme. Patricia will say, we can transform the world. It's up to us. So Patricia, extremely glad that you're on the show with us this morning. Thanks for joining.
Wow. Thank you, Mark. I have no words for such a flattering introduction. Thank you so much.
Hey, well, you better have some words because we're just going to get stuck in. Hey, look, you've got two people who are going to give you some sunshine this morning, I'm sure. Hey, there we are. Patricia, look, Mark said, as part of your LinkedIn profile, you love to do things or put yourself in an uncomfortable position. So maybe that's a good place to kick off. What are the sort of some of the uncomfortable positions you put yourselves in over the years?
This is a great place to start. And I think this has a lot to do with this profession that we love so much, in this area that we love so much. I think it's impossible to continue to be passionate and driven in marketing if you cannot embrace change as something positive and something exciting. So I've started this some time ago, some years ago, and I'm not doing something uncomfortable every week. I'm doing every month. When I start doing every week, I start with basic things like, for 1 week, I would brush my teeth with my left hand. My son is left-handed, and I wanted to see the world through his eyes. And it's very interesting because I discovered that all the scissors in the house didn't fit him. And in Brazil, I never knew that there was something like scissors for left-handed, and you start seeing the world in a different perspective. I've started doing cross-stitching. I started trying to play the ukulele. What else did I do that it was interesting? Of course, I did the left-handed writing. I took some different sports and dancing, but calligraphy. I think I've done all different things. Learning languages, Japanese, some things that I found interesting. But ultimately, the most interesting thing was to do the things where I knew I was going to be really crap at. Like playing instruments. I'm really bad at playing instruments. And to my family dismay, because my husband and my son were really good. So I knew I was doing something that I was going to fail. And it's a very vulnerable experience, and it helps you to manage frustration, which I think is a very good skill to have in today's world. How do you transform frustration into inspiration? So the ukulele was one that took much more than a month. And to be fairly honest, I was bad throughout, really, really bad. But I continued to do it, not out of stubbornness, but out of humbleness. It was a great show of my humanity, the things that I cannot do. And especially when my husband sitting next to me, never had any class in his life and was playing like someone that was born to do that. So it is good because it puts you in your place. I think sometimes in marketing, there was an image that, and maybe it's the Mad Men history times, where people all are have to present themselves as shiny stars and actors and characters in a film, where I see this a little bit the opposite. I think the more humane we are, the more flaws we have, the more vulnerable we present ourselves, the better we can do our job. So it didn't start with all this philosophy. It started because I just wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to step into the consumer shoes. And it turned out to be something that is much deeper than that. So I'm still thinking what's going to be next month's thing, but I continue to do it. It's a good lesson for me.
Well, anybody listening in, guys, please pitch your suggestions.
Very good idea. Please, no more instruments for the time being. This year is already tough.
Oh, I love that. The vulnerability to humanity. There's a joy in what you said, and as you said, you started out with something exploring, and it turned into a philosophy. In particular, you said how to channel frustration into inspiration. I mean, that is the trick, isn't it? So, can you relate that to some of the bigger moments in a work context where you've really taken that frustration as the source of inspiration?
Yeah, I think this is, for everyone, and I'm sure you folks, Mark, you had Direct Line, and Richie, when you were thinking about the School of Marketing, when you have a vision of something, it's very rare when everything is lined up for that to happen as you envision that. And you have moments of, ingrained frustration that if you let that sink in, it's incredible how it has the power to destroy, as one moment in time of frustration has the power to destroy either relationships or, a stream of work that has taken a long time to happen. When on the contrary, if you have the moment to breathe in and think about, okay, this is not happening as I envisioned, this is not like the plan. What is the thing that I can take accountability to change? I can take accountability to transform, that will transform this moment that can be remembered as something that was deeply frustrating into something where I've tried something different to inspire people to come in this journey with me. It's not easy, but there is one thing that I've learned with my father very early in life, that in the moments of stress, in the moments of crisis, this is when you have to have your deepest moments of calmness. My father ran restaurants, and the crisis in restaurants are, from a business point of view, you can say even mundane, because there is no big financial impact in the moment, but there is a reputational impact. So if the food is not good, if there is any foreign objects in the food, so these are crises that impact the experience that you have. And my father always took this very seriously. When someone complained that, okay, the food was not good, it was a moment that he needed to be super calm, because he needed to go back to the chef, which had his own view of what's great food. No chef wants to put out bad food. To communicate and say, okay, how do I get you to understand that even though your intention was X, the perception was Y? So it is something that if he was nervous, he was going to break down both relationships with the client and with the chef. And he couldn't afford to do that. So I think this is the thing for me, always thinking about in these moments, because the frustration, I've never seen someone frustrated that was in their best. Never. I've always seen, not always, but in most cases, you see the worst of people when they're frustrated. And I think everyone has experienced the verbal vomit when people are frustrated. They come and rah, and you don't even know what to do with that, right? So you said, what do you want me to do? Just to hear you out, to give you advice, to give you, what is that you expect from me? So this for me were the triggers to do it. And in all fairness, again, because I think vulnerability is a weapon. I have my moments as well where I sometimes I just call one of my best friends and I said, look, I just need to do some verbal vomiting. Can you just hang on? Because I'm so frustrated. And on my personality, for example, bureaucracy, lack of courage, people that are not willing to try and they're afraid of failing, this generates a huge amount of frustration in me. So it takes a lot of breathing. It takes very good to be better in empathy as well, because for me it's very easy to be courageous. This is part of my mentor. This is part of how I was crafted. So when people say, oh, you moved from Brazil to here and there, I said, yes, this was so exciting. Some people would be very petrified of that. So I can't think that courage for me means the same thing as courage for someone else. So, sure. But it's tough. Every time that I have a moment of frustration, I had one this week. I had one yesterday, by the way. Breathe in and you say, okay, exactly. So the music comes in the background. I said, okay, how am I going to transform this?
It's so pertinent, by the way. Especially in these troubled times, the economic scenario that we find ourselves in. And I find that actually, the way that you framed it really, really well, the way that I frame it in my mind is around just letting go a little bit, not having to hold on to things so tightly that it just overwhelms you and overcomes you. And rather, actually, when you're able to just take that little minutiae step back, actually that frustration does turn into more positive, logical thinking about solutionizing, where you can actually come up with different ways of getting around the problem in which you find yourself. But Patricia, the other thing that I think you said was really insightful was when you're at the receiving end of someone's frustration, often it doesn't actually, you're not the direct cause of it, but perhaps you're the recipient of it. And you've got to really be able to identify that and be able to respond in a constructive sort of way, recognizing that you may not be the person or the cause of that frustration there. So, wonderful. I mean, I really, and I'd love to dig a little bit deeper into, the impact that your dad had and the world of restaurants maybe had on your marketing career. But I'm sure we'll come on to that. I want to pick up on something you said perhaps towards the end, which was courageousness. And, almost the antithesis, bureaucracy versus courageousness. And of course, you've achieved so much, Patricia. And I wonder to what extent you put that down to being courageous. I mean, is that an attribute that has really allowed you to elevate in your career? And would you recommend others do the same?
Yes, I think courage and not being afraid of making mistakes and failing, it's something that has played and still play a very big role in my life. Again, it comes from inspiration from my family, the way my grandfather and my father built a very successful life from scratch. It started, I was the first person, not an entrepreneur in my family. So my first act of courage was to tell my father that I wanted to go to university and not take over his business, which was two things at once. So first time that the family will not have an entrepreneur, and this the first time the family will have someone that decided to go to university. But it is not. It is actually, for us, is a family value. So here at home, we have a little bit of, we have 2 pages with our family values, and courage is one of them. And you need courage to do from the most basic things, to try new foods, for example. So this is another thing, for example, that will make me uncomfortable. The one thing that you wouldn't experience is someone that has a grandfather that was a chef, had a father that had a number of restaurants. I am a super picky eater. I had spent each year in my father's restaurant, I would eat one dish for a year. Yeah, so I had, bolognese spaghetti for 1 year. Then I had parmigiana for another year. So I am a very picky eater. So trying new foods for me was something very uncomfortable. But it's you can have small acts of courage, even if it's not in your nature, because you can start from this. Another act of courage is to dress with a color that you think is maybe too bright and you are a shy person. So I think courage is a very important factor, because for me, courage is linked to openness, and I cannot see how we can succeed in the world without being open to the changes and to new things and to new people and to new places. But if you don't have courage, I think it's a perfect combo, courage and openness, right? So if you don't have courage, I think it's tougher to be open, because to be open, you have to have the courage to see the world through different eyes, to put behind what you think was right, what you think was wrong, what you think is the left or right. So it's something that, again, I think it's when I'm hiring people, this is one of the things that I'm looking. I'm looking for curiosity. There is a number of C's. In marketing and in communication, we love to have P's and C's and D's and A's. This is courage, curiosity, are C's that I am absolutely obsessed with.
And Patricia, in my mind, there's a direct line, excuse the pun, between courage in you and what you've gone on to achieve, because you were recognized as a nominee for WFA Global Marketer of the Year because you've been tackling some taboo conversations, because you've been looking to transform within your sector and beyond. So I'm just going to invite you now to talk a little bit about why you think you were nominated. And this is not a time to be shy, because you've done some amazing things. Tell everybody some of the amazing things you've done.
So I think the first thing to say is, and I really mean it, the same way that you, Mark, when you were heading Direct Line, and you, Richie, when you put together the School of Marketing, it's very little success that you can do on your own. So the first thing is in Bayer, in consumer health, I have an amazing team that is in this journey and believe in the ambition that we have to really take the taboo out of health, especially on intimate health, or really transform self-care into something where people can be empowered to take care of their health. And Richie, you were talking about these difficult times with, some people, as a Brazilian, I know what's inflation since I was born. But in Europe, this is something, and in the US, this is something that people haven't experienced that much. So the cost of health, the cost of medicine, the cost of being sick and not being able to work for some people is not possible. So this is the mission that we were behind, and we are behind. So the first thing, I think I was nominated not because of the work I did on my own, because I have a wonderful team that is in this mission with me. The second thing that I think is important, I also have a boss that allows me to do what I do best. I think this is a very important leadership skill, to empower people, to allow them to do what they're best and give air cover when they need, because you want people to try and test things. So I have something on creativity that's called Creative Unleash, and it's one big act of courage creatively, because we don't test anything. There is no briefing, and I've never had any comment from the CEO, my boss, saying, "Wow, are you doing this?" No, I know that if something goes wrong, he knows I take full accountability, but I know he has my back. And this is the second thing that's important, because these two things allow me to bring the best in me. If you don't have a team that supports you and with smart people that challenges you, you learn from them, and a line manager, a CEO in my case, that really enables you to bring your best every day, the WFA would never have seen us, right? So I think this is the first thing. Then the third thing is the work. The work is amazing. I think everyone that has done anything in the commercial area, I think at certain points in life we saw things on TV or on our screens, or in the outdoors or radios, and we said, "Oh, I wish I was the one doing that," right?
Oh, yes.
There is a number of them, and especially, you both having lived in the UK for some time, it's one of the best places in the world for advertising. And in these 4 years that I'm with Bayer, 4 years and a half now, there is a number of them that I look and I said, "Oh my God, I'm so excited that we're the ones behind this." And I have, is it okay if I tell you too that I'm super excited? I continue to be excited. One is Vagina Academy. Vagina Academy, it's shame-free school to teach women in different ages on how to take care of their intimate health. In a moment of vulnerability, I remember my first meeting with the intimate health team when I arrived at Bayer 4 years and a half ago. And every time they said the word vagina, in my head, I'm thinking, "Oh my God, somebody's going to wash my mouth with soap." Because, I come from one of the biggest Catholic countries in the world. You don't talk about your private parts. And as I start seeing the data, that 80% of women, and this is in different countries in the world, including the UK, they don't talk about their vaginas to their doctor. It's deemed to have a problem, right? So, and in the UK, we have the Vagina Academy is now in many, many countries in the world. And in the UK, Vagina Academy comes in a campaign called Truth Undressed. It's going to a number of schools in the UK. It's now part of the educational process on how to teach girls to take good care of their private parts and know what they have down there, right? So this is one that I'm super excited, very, very proud. We have decensored the word vagina in TikTok in Brazil, decensored the word vagina in Meta in Italy. So these are things that you said, yes, this is why I do this job. And there is one that we are just launching in the US, I think 2 weeks ago, that is called Diverse-a-Tree. And this is for me a mix of really smart, beautiful advertising. And this is BBDO. And Vagina Academy, by the way, is analog, folks. I always like to give credit to our partners. And we have discovered we are one of the biggest players in allergy to help people with allergies in the world with our brand Claritin. And we have discovered that for a very odd reason, the gender gap also exists in nature. Most of the big cities in the world only have male trees. Because female trees, they have fruits, and fruits get the streets dirty. There is a very, very strange rationale behind it. But also male trees are the trees that release pollen. So the levels of allergy increases because they keep planting male trees, and female trees absorb pollen and produce, fruits and etc. So we are launching a campaign to stop the gender gap in trees. And
Wow.
I'm so excited about that because it's something that, it's again the beauty of insights. I would never thought that I was going to do a campaign for equality of gender in trees.
Patricia, that's just amazing. Honestly, Diverse-a-Tree. There we go. I can't believe it.
Tree.
Amazing. Amazing. But look, even beyond the two campaigns you spoke of, which are remarkable campaigns and certainly trailblazing, I mean, there's a whole list and raft of other ones. We could spend the entire podcast just kind of talking about amazing work that you guys are doing, aspirin right through to gaming and all the like, just to
Yes.
get the next generations through as well. But let's stop on the examples for a moment and come back to you and your career. So I wanna, it feels like things have gone rather smooth. Multiple countries, multiple organizations, big awards in the process, but there mustn't always have been the case, and there must have been doubts along the way. And I wondered if perhaps you can share some of your thoughts maybe on the moments that haven't gone as well as what the headlines say.
Yes, for sure. It was everything, anything, different than is motorized. And with that said, I wouldn't change it because I think there's so much learning in every step of the way, every stumble, that I cannot imagine what would be the unintended consequences of changing that to a more the smoother or perfect path. But I saw myself, as a Latino woman. When I went to live in Mexico, I didn't foresee that it was going to be a challenge culturally, because Brazil is very, even though we are all Latinos, it's so different. Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico is so different, and I felt out of place in Mexico. I was the only one on my son's school that he was the only one who had a working mother. So this means I was not included or accepted in the school of my son by the moms. And as a mom, there is nothing more terrifying to think that your son is not going to be invited to the parties or the play dates and etc. because you're not going in the afternoon for whatever is the activity that the moms were doing because you're working. So I had to find my one. This was one of the moments on how do you transform frustration into inspiration. So I had at that point a number of tickets for events, and I started being that ticket lady. So if it was not because they loved me, it because they wanted something from me. So I found my way because I had a very clear target in my head that is, if I'm not feeling included, I don't want my son to feel the same. So then you find a solution, right? But it was tough. It was really tough. From a safety point of view, I never felt so unsafe and so worried about my family safety, and you start giving value to different things and how you make choices, right? So if you have to move this or there next, you have a different set of considerations and things that are non-negotiable. But there were also other times when the category that I was working in, and there is one category specifically where the category put me to my knee. Anything that I would do, nothing would work. And it's tough when you are in the middle of it. But again, it's another humbling moment where you say, why? What is going on? Did I lose, the touch? Am I not understanding what the consumer needs? And sometimes it's a good thing for you not to be able to have an answer and have a solution for everything, because I think we are better as leaders when we are under constraint, because we have to tap into other things. Because we talk about creativity from an advertising point of view, but there is creativity in terms of how we lead, how we solve problems. there is also this moment of vulnerability and collaboration that increases tremendously when you are in a situation where you really do not know how to get out of. So you can either isolate yourself and it doesn't help, or you can say, okay, I can't solve it on my own. Let me just find the best people in the world and let me join forces with them. So if you use it properly, it can be a really great force for development and growth. So I had a number of those in my life, Richie, and there is sometimes it takes a bit of time for you to appreciate the learning, because when you are in the middle of the suffering, it's suffering. But when you look at it with distance, then you start seeing the good in the middle of the suffering, which I always think it's a great moment to stop and reflect and recognize. So everything but smooth. But you also learn. I've moved houses so many times that I have now a booklet with all the things that facilitates a move, from having all the towels and all the linens in one color, because it doesn't matter what's the carpet, what's the curtain color, everything will fit. From having boxes for first day move, so when the truck puts all the boxes in your house, you have 3 boxes assigned first night, where you have everything that you need for the first and second night. So you don't need to, oh my God, where is the towel? Where is the shampoo and all of this stuff? You start creating things. If you take this positively and say, okay, so the first night was a disaster in my first move. I couldn't find anything. So you start saying, okay, so let me just find someone that has moved more than I. What have they learned? So let me search online. So it's everything but smooth. But again, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Patricia's Guide to Home Moving.
Yeah.
I see a published book coming out. There's something in that.
Love that. Everything but smooth, but wouldn't change a thing. And just the becoming the ticket lady, what a stroke of genius. I mean, who cares whether they were reluctantly taking those tickets or not? But it was, but you said something very interesting about being leaders are better under constraint, and I think that's a great lesson for everybody listening. About embrace the messiness, the squiggliness, the setbacks, because all the good stuff actually flows from there. Now, I want to flip to diversity as a theme. We've talked a little bit about it in terms of you feeling excluded at times, and tangentially through Diverse-a-Tree. But I want to really go in properly on diversity in marketing, and I know it's something you're really passionate about. So tell us more about your observations, your learnings, your experience around making sure that marketing is a fully diverse function, and why.
Yeah, this is, you're right. This is very close to my heart. And it's interesting because depending on the environment you're in, it takes some time for you to observe the change. So in Brazil, most of my teams were between 70 and 80% female. So it was at my level, at my team's level, was never an issue. But I've never had a female boss in Latin America. I've never looked up to the board at that point, and there was a female that I, in any small, if there was a female, I didn't relate to her, either because she didn't have a family. It was very verbal, clear that, I've made a choice between my career and my family. Or at that point in time, because I'm talking, 25 years ago, and so the white hair doesn't appear and scream. But there was something at that time where women to succeed in a male's environment had to look the part as a male. So I didn't resonate with that as well. So most of women were using, suits and things like that. And I'm, until today, I'm the lady with the dress and a Converse, right? So this is my style, and I'm not going to change. from a being genuine point of view. I'm not trying to be anything that I'm or anyone that I'm not. So when I got to the UK, I start getting a sense of what was diversity in a much broader sense. Because in Brazil, you almost don't notice because we had so much immigration that you think everyone. So I have an uncle that is Japanese, and it's very normal. My grandmother from my mother's side is a native Brazilian. She's indigenous. And my father and my grandfather are Europeans, blonde with blue eyes. So you are used to that mix. But then I come to the UK to live in the UK in 2008, and I start seeing people from India, which we don't have in Brazil. I start seeing Muslim people, which we don't have in Brazil. And I start seeing people from the Caribbean. I'm looking around and I'm finding it super exciting. But in the office, everyone pretty much looks like me. So it's not the gender thing. And I did one thing recently, about 2 years ago. I look back at my files as much as I could remember. And in about 25 years, 30 years of career, only 3 times recruiters have presented me Black candidates. 3 times. Never I was presented someone with a disability. And I've started doing blind CVs a long time ago, and I know blind CVs are not the solution, but it's something that helps me keep myself aware that, you know, I'm looking for the experience, I'm looking for values. So I even take out name, because sometimes name gives an idea. I've asked them to take where people did university, because of course, if it's institute or something in Bangalore, the chance that this person is from India are quite big, right? So I've asked them to take anything that would address what it was. And nevertheless, for certain jobs, there is a certain type of people. For certain jobs, there's another type of people. And I start coming to realization, I think this is something I heard from you, Mark, that the School of Marketing is doing very well, is it's a systemic issue. We are not getting people from low-income backgrounds into marketing. And this, you know, what you're seeing at the office is just coming from what is fed into universities. I remember when I started doing engineering and then I went to the marketing. But I remember when I was doing marketing in Brazil, if you wanted to do an internship in an agency, there was no payment.
Yep.
So if you have means, that's fine. So all the rich people were getting the internships. But if you're coming from a low income, you cannot afford not to have a pay, because most of these young people are also provided for their families, right? So this is something that I'm feeling really I'm passionate about. And 2 years ago, we did a partnership with the Creative Club in Brazil, only focusing on low-income universities and people from minority background in this sense. And we gave them challenges with our brands. And then the ones that would win the challenge will not only get mentorship, but they will get the work in their portfolio that will put them in advantage to get jobs when they move to agencies. So there are a couple of things that we can do, but this is small. When we talk about systemic change, we need to start doing things that are replicable and are scalable. So at the moment, this is a little bit what worries me, is that we do not have enough. And I have the most diverse team in my division. So from a nationality point of view, a religious point of view, a gender point of view, so the most diverse one. Yet, for example, I'll give you one piece of data that might blow your mind, but there are some devices in health, like blood pressure and things like this, that were designed for white people. They do not work. as well for Black people. And why is that? Because everyone designing it is white. It's not because it's not malicious. It's just you design for what you see, right? So this is why I am, and my agenda is very clear. It's not. I don't think it's a fight between Black and white. I don't think it's a fight between men and women. I don't think it's a fight between anything. I think the beauty is when we are all together, because there's so much learning, and the juices are much better when we are all together. But we are also not designing to serve our consumer needs if we don't have that in the teams. From an agency point of view, from a strategic partners point of view, as well as inside the office. Does it make sense to you? Does it resonate with your experience?
Oh, Patricia, my God, nail on the head on so many of those core themes. I mean, the one that, amongst many, the one thing that you talked of when you talked about back in your experience around senior leaders and female senior leaders almost being a mirror image to their male counterparts. That for me also extends into a socioeconomic status issue as well, where you've got ethnic groups having to act a certain way in an environment, being very unauthentic in doing so, in order to try and almost just fit in. And I think there's a real issue around systemic change. So even if we see a diverse team in and around, it actually takes, and I think you alluded to it, a boss and the systems that be to allow those individuals to be their authentic selves in the workplace in order for us to unleash and allow them to kind of have that diverse point of view. There is no point in simply getting people to change. We need to change our organizations in light of that background. So I so agree with you. And then, by the way, this extends, we talk about a pay gap, and you talked about the ultimate pay gap at intern level, right? Free, which creates an issue. If you look at the statistics all throughout someone's career, you will see that the white demographic sits at the top of the pay grades, followed by Asians, followed by mixed race, and last Blacks. That is the stats, and that's how it works at a macro level. And again, so you talk about the economic issues that start at a young level. It goes all throughout your career. And even if you look at things like the number of C-suite executives, there is a difference between whether they went to public school or private school.
Yeah.
And that obviously, again, is a socioeconomic problem. So look, there's so many things that we truly need to make change on.
And we should look at the facts, right? So I love that you're talking about the pay gap. And I think it was the Female Quotient that published that in the US, the lowest paid group is Latinas. Latinas are less paid than Black, are less paid than Asian, and of course, much less paid than white men. But I think this is it's an important point for us to bring. That is, it's because sometimes people, and especially women, it's not about men against women. And I think this is a really important part. The most important people professionally for me were men. And they were not men because they were the only ones up there. They were the ones with great value. They were the ones that made bets on me. They were the ones going above and beyond their path to sponsor me and to say my name in a room which I didn't even know had an opportunity. And I think in life you have to choose, where do you sit? If you sit in a victim's place, or if you sit in the place where you own your life, right? So I believe that sitting in a victim's place, it's quite a dangerous place to sit, because you almost do not have control over the things that are happening to you, right? So women have a possibility to be also better to other women. And this is, and I'm going to give you simple examples where and not just women to other women, but brown to other brown, black to other black, Asian to other Asian. We are not competing amongst ourselves. So one of the tests that I do is when I'm asked to recommend people, how much of the people that I'm recommending are in line with my beliefs and my values about offering, giving the stage to people that do not have that visibility. And at the beginning, I've noticed that most of the people that came top of mind were white male. And for a very simple reason, they were very good at selling themselves. So they got the top of mind. So I start making a point on noticing people that I thought were really good, but maybe not as good as selling themselves. And I would bring their name in a room that there was an opportunity and they were not in. But when I was growing up in business, I haven't seen a lot of women doing this to other women. Women are grown to be very competitive. I've seen a change. I've seen more sisterhood, which is wonderful, because when you are a woman in business, there are lots of people looking at you. I remember there were people looking at me to say, okay, I'm just checking if you can really do it. If you can have a mom, you can have a marriage, and if you can do the work. And it's a burden to try to be a trailblazer, because life is already complicated enough, right? But we cannot ignore the fact that there are people looking. As the same way there are people looking at you both thinking, okay, can I be a really successful professional and then a really successful entrepreneur? Can I be someone that is a founder of something? Can I do that and also have a family and be a breadwinner? Because the other thing that I've learned is that men have never been so much under pressure. And there is this institute in Canada that has researched men. It was really, really interesting. Men coming out of war that for some reason have been emasculated physically, literally, and became very, very violent. And what they have learned is the best way to bring them back to their normal selves is not to shame them, is not to keep saying, oh, you guys are the majority, you're right. It's how do you bring them on the journey with you. So if you take the same parallel and have empathy, if you take the same parallel, I'm sure you both have similar challenges that I have. It's just different the way we approach it, right? So we both care about the people we love. We both want to give the best to the people that means a lot to us. And I think we all want to leave a legacy behind, right? And we are born in different countries. We have different genders. And we live in different countries. But we have so I think the values is the thing that people should be focusing more on. And I think this is what's going to take us further in terms of having more diverse teams. If the values are right, it doesn't matter how people look, what they prefer, and etc. We went very deep on this one. Okay, let's come back.
Well, Patricia, it's an incredible conversation. I think, unfortunately, we're out of time on this segment, but what an amazing conversation. You talk about values and your values shine through. You talk about legacy, what a legacy you're already in the process of building. We've gone heavy on diversity, but we wanted to give you that platform to talk to that. And you said a lovely thing, which is it is a burden to be a trailblazer, but boy, do you carry that burden really well. So from my point of view, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And I'm going to hand to Richie to do his very best to summarize what's been a scintillating conversation. But thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
Yeah, Patricia, you've made my job very, very hard at the moment for so many wonderful things that you have said during this conversation. But it has been igniting and it's been wonderful. So I'm going to try my best to summarize. We obviously kicked off with the whole piece around being uncomfortable. And even from brushing your teeth with your left hand right through to learning languages and instruments, which you've admitted you may not be the best at. But actually, the term frustration to inspiration came across loud and clear. And I think that's a key message that all of us can really take away. that if we can turn our frustrating moments into ones that can inspire, then we've clearly going to do something right. And you do so, in a bid not to be stubborn, but to be humble, recognizing that there are things, and I think you used the word, that you're crap at. But I think that's one thing that it's brilliant, because especially for people who get up in a career journey, you could almost get to the point where you feel like you're good at everything, but clearly these are things that keep you centered, and I think that's wonderful to have. We talked a lot about the role of frustration, and actually some of those moments, how to turn frustration into calmness, as your dad did during the process and times in the restaurant, and actually having reputation high above the door in those moments. Around courage, I think that was another big theme of being courageous, being brave, and actually you've attributed that courageousness to being part of your success, with a sense of openness that comes with being courageous. We went stereotypical into the marketing C's, but your marketing C's consist of curiosity and being courageous. I loved how you said when Mark was trying to poke at you talking about all your successes, the first thing you said was actually, no, it's a team effort. And actually, whether that's the people around me, the agencies you work with, even your boss, championing you and supporting you all the way through. Super important to be able to give you that air cover you need when you're launching things like Creative Unleash. You're most proud of so many different campaigns that you've launched. Vagina Academy, a real trailblazer, right through to Diverse-a-Tree. Bloody hell. Never thought I'd say that. Hey, never thought anyone in a career would actually go down that road, but there we are. Amazing where you land up. Lots of vulnerability along the way as well, particularly your experiences of Mexico. And I just want to say that I'm sorry to hear that that's how you felt. I know many lessons learned, but still, it's uncomfortable. But the way you navigated it and you summed it up with that one sentence, even if they don't love me, they will want something from me. I wonder if there is actually a real philosophy that sits at the heart of that, more than anything as well. So, and of course, the conversations around diversity and even being candid around the number of the Black candidates and disabled candidates that you've had put across your table, clearly something needs to change, and dramatic thing needs to change, not just for the betterment of our internal working teams, but for our industry. And of course, you alluded to, even instruments not working better on some groups than others. And actually, that's something we totally need to change and get better at. And that's something that we could have easily avoided, I'm sure, had we had diverse teams and diversity at the heart of our organizations. So look, thank you, Patricia. I hope I've done a good job to summarize some of those key themes, but it's been absolutely wonderful to have you on this morning. And I genuinely wish you all the best. I can just see the shining light that you are and going to continue to be. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I want to say for the folks that have stayed with us listening, thank you for giving me the space to talk about the things that I'm passionate for and about. And we need passionate and enthusiastic people in marketing. So we have never before needed so many of you to come and to drive brands. And brands are really something that it's becoming again more important. After COVID, the trust in brands is something that has raised. So we have never also had so many resources to be good at it. So the School of Marketing is one of them. Having the podcast, looking at LinkedIn, these are the things that you can do that costs, just watching this podcast. You just need to have the will. You just need to have a plan. And a vision of where you want to go, and look for the programs that they offer. Mark was talking about mentorship programs in the UK. I'm sure if you're not from the UK, if you're listening to this somewhere else, there must be something. So look for it. Take ownership of your career, because we need the greatest in this. And I hope that this has allowed you to get a little bit excited about coming if you are in doubt, or continue to be excited if this is your path already. So thank you, Mark and Mitch, for having me. You deliver against your promise that we were going to have fun. I had a lot of fun. It is the sun shining light on my Friday, and I really appreciate you guys inviting me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patricia.